Hey everyone, and welcome back to another week of updates from Model Trains 365 and the Heartland Division. This week is no different. We'll be doing some more scenery work over in the Chicago area, and I'll be showing some how-to stuff on what I've got done. But before we do that, I wanted to run some trains on by for you because I know that's probably the real reason that you're here. Pulling out onto the main off the siding here is a pair of UP-9s. These are both scale trains models from their rivet counter line, and I had these weathered by John Hill. Good looking units. I've got sound in the first one and just the decoder in the other one, which I probably should have done that differently, but that's how it worked out. Probably based on what was available at the time when I purchased them. So just something I need to work on in the future so I can get these engines swapped around, as I really like 9643 to be the lead. But regardless, that's what I got right now, and they're running, so I can't really complain. Just gonna run these guys by this farm scene that I've been slowly working on over the summer is when I started it, and really haven't made much progress other than, you know, the base scenery stuff and putting down some ground cover paint just as the base layer before any of the real scenery gets done. But definitely looking forward to getting that completed. As you can see, good sweeping curve here, and really going to look awesome once there's some ground cover down and the scene comes together. Currently I'm bringing this train into St. Louis, where I'm going to leave it on the staging loop, and I'm going to pull out a Chicago Metra train that I've been running around the layout. Really in love with the Metra scheme, the paint colors, and the locomotives that they have. So here's a Metra consist pulling out of St. Louis. Now I realize they don't service St. Louis, but however, on my layout, anything is possible, so that's where they are. The engine here is by Rapido, and those coaches are just the Cato models from back in the day. These Cato cars are really good runners. Have no issues running them in reverse with nothing done to the cab car at all, just how it comes. We're going to bring the Metra train to a stop right outside the intermodal facility, as we can go no further since the bascule bridge is raised, and that means it's time to get to work. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been focusing on the structures and the scenery at Semper Fi Sand and Gravel. But this week I'm going to move on to doing some details inside the river itself. So before I pour the water, I want to start putting in some pilings that will be in place to protect the bridge from the barges running into it. It's probably going to take a lot of them, so let's go get started. I'm starting off with some 1/8 inch and some 3/16 inch craft dowels that I picked up for real cheap. They're already kind of beat up and warped around, so they're going to work out pretty good for what we need them for. First thing I do is I'm going to score them with this Atlas track knife. just to give them some grain to the wood, and that way when we hit them with a wash, it's going to help show some detail. I've already figured out about how tall I need them to be, accounting for how deep the water is going to be on the layout. So I just drew a couple of tech marks on the layout. And what I'm going to do is just try not to make any that are any longer than those tech marks. So I'm just going to cut quite a few of these, and then we'll glue them together. Now that I have a few cut, I'm going to take these and rub them up against the sanding block and just kind of round off the tops. Now that the top edges have been sanded, just going to take some tacky glue on the bottom portion of the largest piling, and then I'm going to pair up two of the smaller 1/8 diameter dowels with it. And the tacky glue seems to be working quite well, as it almost holds them together immediately so that they can even stand up on their own, and you can move them around, trying to keep the glue showing through to a minimum. However, that's going to be underwater, so probably not going to be noticeable, but just in case, we want to make sure there's not too much excess glue showing. I've put together groups of 3, groups of 4, a group of 2, even a single one by itself, so that way when we get over to the layout, I've got a selection to choose from, and it doesn't get redundant with just the same looking group of pylons. And that should give us a real prototypical look. Right here you can see my pylon groups in various stages of completion, going from unpainted to painted to fully painted, weathered, and wrapped with some beadalon to simulate metal strapping to hold them all together. For the base paint, I just used some acrylic craft paint, some barnwood, butter pecan, and some black. Just kind of mixed it haphazardly together, diluted it some, and brushed it on, making the bottom portions a little darker as to simulate the water line, and then gradually getting softer towards the top. Also used various pan pastels to brush on there to give it a great weathered look. And then for the beadalon metal strapping, I used this brown paint pen and went along those very carefully to simulate that they're rusted. So overall, I think they're looking pretty good. It's definitely a time-consuming process, but I think it's going to look really good once they get put on the layout. Now I've cut enough pieces, and I'm going to start building the bridge fenders. Now these are going to be placed around the bridge piers so that the boats don't run into them as well. It kind of guides the boat traffic underneath the bridge to keep everybody safe. Pretty much have it laid out how I want it, so just going to start applying some glue, take it from there. I keep the straight edge on the bottom to keep them lined up, so when I go to install them, they're pretty level. It just makes everything easier. As you can tell, this isn't very much fun, but the look of them overall is well worth it. And any of this excess glue that's left over, I just take a brush and brush that away. I'm painting the bridge fenders just like I did the pilings. Just a mix of acrylic paints. It's definitely nothing precise, just mixing up some colors to get some different variations to show some effects of aged wood that's been sitting in water for a long time. For added detail, I'm using these hex nuts and bolts from Tichy Train Group. Little detail pack here. Just coated them with the paint marker, the rust color. And then what I'll do to get them into the board, I'll just drill a hole in the wood, cut them off the sprue, and just put them in there. I haven't been gluing them or anything. They just seem to fit in there nice and snug, and hopefully they'll stay there forever. These pieces are tiny, so about 10% of them land up on the floor, never to be found again. But there's 96 in the pack, so they should last quite a while. So the best way I've found to place these in the holes that I've drilled is just grabbing them with this sharp tool here, getting it on top of the hole there, and just negotiating it into the wood with the other finger. So after placing the bolt details into the wood, just going to hit them with some pan pastel powders, a little bit of rust, browns, some light stuff, and even some black stuff on there. I don't think you can really go wrong, as these things have been out in the water elements for years, so whatever we come up with is going to probably be believable. And there we have it, ready to go get a quick spray of dull coat and then placed on the layout. One easy way to spray stuff is to use these, I think they're picture holders. They're just alligator clips on sticks. I found some on Amazon. You can look at my idea lists. There's some wire ones in there. These are wood ones that I guess they sold out of. But these things work great to clamp onto stuff and then hold it while you're spraying around it. Before moving on and placing the pylons onto the riverbed, I'm going to give it some more of a base layer with the airbrush to just kind of blend in some colors of some browns, grays, and greens to simulate the river having some depth in various places once the resin for the water is poured on top. And since the airbrush is already out and dirty, I'm going to move on over to this other side of the river and hit up this harbor wall. This is just a kit from Walther's that I've slightly modified, making it shorter by just gluing it to the back of some like 1/8 inch hardboard and cutting it on the table saw. The riverbed paint is dry and the dull coat on the pylons has had time to dry. So now I'm just going to place these on the layout in spots what I think would realistically protect the bridge from the ships going underneath. And I'm just going to tack them down with one spot of glue so that if I need to remove them or move them around to better suit a look, then they'll come up pretty easily. Let's place the barge back where I think it belongs. And then we'll start laying out some more pilings. At the moment, we're just a few short, so we'll go back to the workbench and knock out a few more. For the set of bridge fenders that I built for the center pier of the bridge scene, I'm going to reinforce those with some steel I-beams. So I'm just going to hit these up with some rust-colored paint from the airbrush and then throw them on the set that I've got built. Here's a look at one of the bridge fenders for the middle pier that I had constructed. So far it's turning out pretty good, just need to work on some end pieces. Now I originally thought to come up with one on each side, but then after laying in bed this morning I came to a realization that the ship traffic is going to go underneath the bridge and not on the other side. Anything that would fit under there would not cause any damage to the pier. So I went ahead and reinforced this side with the steel I-beam on top, and good thing I just temporarily mounted that stuff because I had to pull it up, put it on the bench, and cut off some I-beam stuff and glue it on there. So now I think this might be the final answer for the bridge fenders. Just going to put something in this area to direct the traffic, I guess, underneath the bridge. Maybe some kind of warning sign or flashing lights or something like that on a couple other pilings that'll be placed. Also going to do pilings in the back just so the scene doesn't look unfinished once it's all done. Of course, that's a lot of time wasted on stuff that will barely be seen, but I think it will make a big difference. I also decided to 3D print some concrete style pilings that will go on the scene as well. These I just opened up Tinkercad, real easy program to use. Made a little design and then imported it to Prusa Slicer and then sent it to the 3D printer. Here's a look at a couple of the concrete pilings that I 3D printed and painted. My future plans for those are to put some flashing LED lights on there or some signage, something to mark the channel. I've got to do some research on how that should be done properly, but that'll be a project for a different day. This is about all I'm going to do for the week. Honestly, I didn't feel like completing the rest of the pilings for behind the scene just because I got burnt out, and we'll have to tackle that a different day. But now that the work is done, the bridge is down, and the METRA is cleared to come through. And once again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for future videos.